there, and I think this building has sort of a sister building too. If I lived there, I would be demanding to see some sort of records to find out just how safe things are. It's got to be unnerving for everyone else too who lives in that neighborhood. Jim DeFede, thank you so much.
Anytime.
All right, let's get you over to Pensacola, Florida now, where Governor DeSantis is giving updates on yesterday's deadly building collapse in Surfside. Let's listen.
Obviously to send off some folks on a deployment, but before we do that, just wanted to say that we've had people working down in Surfside, search and rescue nonstop all through the night. It's a very, very difficult situation. Obviously, you have people that have been displaced who fortunately got out of there in time, and so there's support services for them. But then you have a lot of family members who don't know where their loved ones are. So it's been a really, really difficult time for the state of Florida, but particularly for the Surfside community. I was able to speak yesterday with FEMA Director Deanne Criswell, and they were great. They have supported some emergency assistance, and so obviously the search and rescue is the primary. Any lives, they're trying to save lives, and that's clearly the most important thing. We also have a number of people that have, of course, been displaced. They're never going to go back. The people that got out are never going to go back and live in that building, of course, and so some of them have lost everything that they had, and so there's a need for individual assistance, and so FEMA is going to provide support for that. We also have ability to help through charity, and I want to thank folks who've already put this up. I know some of the news stations have. I know Sean Hannity put it up last night, but there's two different organizations, and we're going to be supporting both of them. One is theshul.org. That's SHUL, theshul.org/8777. And then there's another organization, supportsurfside.org. Both of those will put that money to good use to be able to help folks. And then, of course, we'll have to figure out why did this happen, and that answer isn't necessarily apparent right now, but it will be identified, and I think that anyone who was affected by this directly wants that answer, but also we need to know, is this a bigger issue or is this something unique to the building? But I want to thank everyone who's been involved in that effort. You have the folks down there in Miami-Dade, the rescue folks, they're good, and they were there within minutes, and we had our Florida emergency response down there shortly thereafter, and the federal government is now helping us out as well. So it's a team effort, all about trying to save lives, all about trying to shepherd the people to safety, and then obviously help these folks get back on their feet because it's a really traumatic thing. So God bless everybody who's been participating, and God bless everybody who has stepped up, either given a contribution, said prayers, whatever you've done, we really appreciate it. And that's been for people all over this country, not just in the state of Florida. So thank you. And we recognize with that response, the people that wear uniforms are heroes. They step up to support us in a variety of ways. When you have those circumstances, they're the first ones there. Here today, we're seeing... All
right, so we've just been listening to Governor DeSantis, Governor of Florida, thanking all those who are participating in the search and rescue effort of that partially collapsed building in Surfside. Vlad, we've been talking about this earlier, but the men and women that are doing that search and rescue work, they're really putting their own lives on the line, particularly those who are working underground in that basement garage area with, light equipment. They are listening for any little noise, debris falling, metal twisting, and as soon as they hear that noise, they start to pursue it. That means moving debris out of the way, climbing through, holes, and searching for any signs of life, and they are working, to exhaustion. Many of them, we heard, don't even want to leave when their shift is up because they are so committed, and they know that time is of the essence if they're going to find survivors within that debris. So Governor DeSantis thanking them and the many others supporting the effort.
Yeah, they will often use, as they are digging underground, Emery, they use acoustical equipment. They will drop these acoustical microphones into crevices walls and into holes to see if they pick up any signs of life. They also use rescue dogs who are able to obviously maneuver in places where men cannot, to try and sniff. And these dogs are expertly trained to detect the smallest signs of life. Even somebody who's unconscious but still breathing, these dogs can find them.
I should just say that there's a little bit of a delay, Vlad. Sorry for cutting into you. So it popped up when I was kind of pointing at the screen there because we were showing a live picture and we kind of had a car pass by and block the camera. And so we couldn't see all the activity that was going on there, which has really been a 24-hour operation. So sorry to cut into you because I'm sure the viewers are like, why is she making that facial expression?
It's okay.
And that was the reason why.
That's all right.
I kind of like, I wanted people to really see, the scene and the number of people that have descended on this location because, Vlad, as you know, and you've pointed out that, these are the crucial hours. It's really difficult to survive without food and water, though it has rained. And so they know that if they're going to find someone, they need to do it, now.
Right. The reality is that I am, somewhat comforted by the fact that it has rained a couple of times because, as we were saying earlier, the access to water, even if it's just a couple of drops, that's all the human body needs to survive. We've seen it. I witnessed, young children being pulled out of buildings that had collapsed, 5 days earlier. Now one of those now kids is a teenager in high school. And so it's absolutely possible. And for those 150 plus families who are holding out hope, my hope and my prayer, and I know yours as well, Anne-Marie, is that these rescuers will find them. But of course, we are also prepared for the grim reality that not everyone will be recovered from the building alive and well. And so that's what you're talking about, these crews that are working day and night because time is of the essence, but it's also very dangerous because at any moment the building could shift and more rubble could come piling down on those rescue workers. So they are really putting their own lives at risk, their own safety at risk to try and rescue and recover those who may still be trapped inside. And these are live pictures I'm guessing that we're looking at right now of just moments ago, okay, is what I'm told, just moments ago. And so we're going to keep an eye on what is happening. But, Anne-Marie, what Jim DeFede was telling us, which I thought was interesting, as we look at this building now, you see that portion of the building that has pancaked is actually the one that is facing the ocean. And if you look around, if we do get a shot of the other side of the building, it's fairly still intact. And we know a lot of people were rescued from that side of the building. And so, as Jim was pointing out, that's going to be something that he and other investigative reporters based in the Miami area are going to become very well versed in, which is the structural engineering aspects of buildings like this, of concrete, of the pylons, of the rebar, as we begin to look at the reasons why this happened. So we'll stay on top of that.
When Jim was talking, part of it, he was talking a lot about the impact of salt water on structures, but I couldn't help, and we didn't get a chance to sort of talk to him about that, but I couldn't help but to think also about how many times have we done stories on sort of random sinkholes in Florida, and how this water comes in underneath a structure and just ever so slowly kind of carves away at the land underneath, and you just never know when something might give. And Vlad, we'll see sort of, a car disappear on a street and everything else around it is just fine and remains just fine. Sometimes it can be so random and randomly unlucky.
And we talked about, Anne-Marie, you and I were on the air covering Hurricane Harvey when it hit Houston in 2017. And I will never forget those images of an American city, much like what we saw in New Orleans, buried under water. And when we brought on scientists to talk about that and to try to explain to our viewers why we were seeing unprecedented flooding in the streets of Houston, one of the things they pointed out is that part of the reason that this occurred is the overbuilding, that man put buildings and structures and sidewalks and streets and parking lots and shopping centers in areas where now there was no there was no capability of the earth to absorb heavy rains. And when you don't have the natural ability of the planet to absorb these rains in that area, in that part of the country, the result is what we saw in 2017. And Jim alluded to something similar here where, people want, we all do. We all want beautiful views. We all want, beachfront property, but there is a price. And here we're seeing, at least initially, speculation that may be one of the things that scientists and structural engineers are going to be looking at. They're going to have to take into account everything. And I'm sure it's not going to be one thing. As always, we learned that there's a series of things. As Jim pointed out, the building was undergoing inspection. And even though at that point, in his discussions with those engineers, they didn't come up with anything they told him that would have indicated that this could happen. But Jim also said that, as you're going through the inspection and as you start building, as you start repairing what needs to be fixed, you uncover new things as you're going through that process. And so that's where we are. All right, we're going to keep an eye on what's going on in Surfside, Florida. We'll have coverage all throughout the day right here on CBSN.